Advisory Panel meeting for February 13th. And just a little reminder that we are being live streamed and video recorded for the public. So just to let you know that. So we've had an agenda issued. Are there any additions to the agenda from the panel members? No, seeing none, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented? Harry, seconder Jonathan, all in favor? Great. Okay. Well, our first item of business is to introduce our new AIBC member, Marta Kubacki, who joins us today. And welcome, Marta. And Marta holds a Master of Architecture from University of Waterloo. She's currently employed with Raymond DeBeeld Architect here in Nanaimo. And she's got extensive experience leading design for residential, mixed use, and institutional projects, both in Lower Mainland, Vancouver area, elsewhere in Canada, and also internationally. So another good asset to our panel. So great, thank you. Okay, is there any? We've got a set of minutes to approve tonight. Any changes or comments on the minutes from anybody? No? Okay, if I can have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Angie, seconder. And Harry, all in favor? Great, that's done. Okay. So we have two presentations this evening, and Christine Mays, our city planner, will introduce the first project. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So development permit application 1367 is for a 3-story ground-oriented multifamily residential for 7 3-story ground-oriented multifamily residential buildings, and that's comprising the total of 30 3-bedroom townhouse units. The subject property is zoned low-density residential, so that's R6, and is designated suburban neighborhood in city plan. And the subject property is located on the south side of Labio Road, that's west of Autumnwood Drive. Subject property falls within Development Permit Area 8, and that's forming character, and as such, the general Development Permit Area design guidelines apply to the proposed development. The applicant has identified a potential building height variance, and that will be confirmed through the application review. Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy to take any questions after the applicant's presentation.
Great. The applicant can, who's presenting this evening for this project?
My name is Matthew Chang. I'm the architect, so I will be doing the presentation.
Oh, okay. You can go ahead and share your screen anytime you're ready then.
Yes. Is landscape architect. Is Brad there? Hi, Brad.
Looking for Brad Forth, is that?
Brad Forth, yeah.
I see his
okay.
picture.
Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry about that.
Here I am.
There he is.
Okay. My screen. Yes. Okay, I think it should be okay now. Okay, I think you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you, but just speak up. You're a little far away from the speaker, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Hello? Okay. Okay, go this way.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. So, good afternoon. My name is Matthew Chang of Matthew Chang Architect Incorporated. Next to me is my intern architect, Nazaran. The developer is Navir of 1336178 BCA Ltd, and the landscape architect is Brad of Foresight Landscape Architecture. This is a 30-unit townhouse development at 2453 Labrio Road. The site is located in the Diver Lake neighborhood The surrounding area is established single-family dwelling, multi-family, and commercial development, and with Bearborn Park to the east of this property. The site is a single property with an existing dwelling unit, which will be demolished. The site has 122 feet frontage and almost 500 feet deep, which occupies the whole block. The lot area is about 60,000 square foot, which is about 1.38 acres. There's a small dedication of 2.47 meters along La Brea Road. The lot has 3 street frontages, including La Brea Road to the north, Autumnwood Drive to the east, and York Crescent to the south. The site has quite a few trees and is sloped up 5 meters from north to south. The property has been rezoned from R1 to R6, which is low density residential in October 2024. The proposed FAR is 0.63, which is permitted by using the base FAR of 0.45 plus additional 0.25 by achieving 65 tons of Tier 2 Schedule D amenities. All yards fulfill the zoning requirement. However, the building height needs some minor relaxation due to the slope of the site. Regarding the 65 tons of Tier 2 Schedule D amenity, there are a few highlights. The site is close to the park, retail, daycare, and regional transit bus stop. Some on-site trees will be retained, and new street trees will be planted. Minimum 50% parking will be provided with EV charger, and parking space provided does not exceed minimum requirements. Certified wood will be used as building material, and construction and waste management plan will be provided. The major feature is fulfilling step 4 of BC's Energy Step Code. And water-saving pumping fixtures and water-efficient irrigation system will be specified. Also, children play area and garden space for residents will be provided. The 30-unit townhouse will be designed in 7 3-story buildings. They are all family-orientated 3-bedroom units with an average size of 1,250 square foot. Out of the 7 buildings, 1 building facing La Brea Road to the north, 3 buildings facing Autumnwood Drive to the east, 1 building facing York Crescent to the south, and 2 buildings facing the internal driveway. There are 2 access driveways along Autumnwood Drive, and there's a major internal driveway running north-south of the site. Regarding site planning, 4 landmark trees will be retained, and there's a 1.8 landscape buffer that will be provided along the west property line next to the neighbor. All units will have at grade private outdoor space. Regarding rainwater management, a detention tank has been designed by the civil engineer, and the location is under the outdoor amenity space. At the central location of the site, there's an outdoor amenity space. A mailbox kiosk and a covered short-term bike rack are located next to it. Between building B and C, there are 3 visitor parking spaces and a communal garbage enclosure next to it. Regarding parking, all units will have 2 parking spaces. Only 6 out of 24 units will have tandem parking instead of side-by-side parking. EV charger will be provided in each garage. The required visitor parking is 3, and we are providing the same number. The required accessible parking space is 2, and they are located within the 3 visitor parking space. For bikes, the long-term bike space required is 15, and we are providing the same number in the garages and with the electrical outlet at the space. 3 short-term bike parking will be provided in the covered bike shed near the outdoor amenity space, as mentioned. Garbage bin space for 3-stream garbage container is provided in all garages. And also on top, a communal garbage enclosure is provided next to the visitor parking as mentioned. The garbage could be picked up by a private company either at curbside or at the communal garbage shed. It's up to the Strata Council. The architectural style is contemporary West Coast style. West Coast design elements have been incorporated together with clean lines and subtle color palettes. There are three distinct color palettes so that each building is individually recognizable while maintaining harmony with one another. The design is inspired by the neighboring 70s architectural style, and it is consistent with the local context. The three colors, including beige, gray, and blue-gray, they are complemented by dark gray fascia board, window trims, and railings. The roofs are pitched, which would enhance the compatibility with the existing neighborhood. The material and finishes, including hardy siding with 6-inch exposure, hardy board with easy trims, asphalt shingles, double glazed window and patio door, fiberglass front door and steel garage doors, and also railing with clear glass. So there are some shots of the individual buildings. So this is the first one, is the 6-unit building A facing Labrador Road in beige scheme. And this is the elevation of the building A. So this is building B, which is a 2-unit building facing the internal driveway in gray scheme. And this is the elevation of this 2-unit building. And this is building C, which is the 3-unit building also facing internal driveway, but it is in the blue-gray scheme. And this is the elevation of this 3-unit building. And building D, this is the also a 6-unit building facing York Crescent in a beige scheme. 6-unit. And this is the elevation of this 6-unit building. And a couple more is building E with a 4-unit facing Autumnwood Drive, and it is in the gray scheme. This is the elevation of this building E. And building F is a 5-unit next to the building E, also facing Autumnwood Drive. And in beige scheme, it's different. And this is the elevation. And the last is the building G, also facing Autumnwood Drive in 4 units and in the blue-gray scheme. And this is the elevations. So as the conclusion, our design respect Nanaimo character of diverse neighborhood, reflect local context, enhance streetscape, foster neighborhood's identity and diversity, and also contribute to the vitality and livability of city of Nanaimo. So this is my architectural presentation, and I will pass it to the landscape architect. Hi, Brad.
Hi, everybody. So for the landscape architecture of this one, we have put in a lot of trees for the project, particularly in the big buffer strip on the top of the sheet. You can see the large deciduous trees mixed with what we're using is we have room to put in some upright coniferous trees, sort of like Serbian spruce, in between as intermittent to give it a little more privacy. So that's what you see along the top of the sheet. And then when you drive in the entry road, you first approach an amenity space for the residents, which includes a timber frame play structure, a nice seating area with outdoor furnishings, a shade tree, and actually in that area we're protecting a large tree that's already there. And there's bike parking in that zone as well. And then as you drive in, so that's what how you introduced to the project. So it's a very pleasing, exciting kind of thing to approach, and you come in. And then as you drive down between the units, between the buildings B, G, F, whatever, we've introduced small trees in the front of every unit. Those would be kind of very upright, small flowering trees. And they don't appear in the architectural renderings because it would block the views of the renderings, but they are there, and that'll create a very intimate scale. And in between the buildings, where possible, we've included large deciduous trees to kind of break up the lawn, especially on the building E, F, and G frontage. So, which is longer. We broke that up with a couple of large trees. Then as you get down to building D, again, we've repeated the small trees in front. And in the center, I guess, of the project, there's a visitor parking spaces with a garbage shed and communal space. What we did is we introduced permeable paving and colored paving in that location in order to create a kind of a courtyard effect when there are no visitors there. So it just kind of feels like a little bit of a central gathering point. And then each of the units has their own little divided garden, almost like little townhouse gardens with a walkway that either goes out to York Crescent or comes out to the Labio Road. And in the back, the units 7 through 11 have their own contained little gardens. And each garden has a private paver patio. It has surrounding planting beds and a little lawn area for each of the residents to enjoy, and that's typical of all of the units that we have. So each one's quite nicely appointed. And then on Labio Road in general, we've got large deciduous street trees in bump outs, and then we have the parking echelons along the street where you can parallel park. And then in between the larger trees, we've introduced a row of small flowering trees that complement the trees that are in the backyards of buildings E, F, and G, so that I guess you'd call them front yards, backyards. They have little sidewalk entrances out to the street, but they also have that row of flowering trees, which you can see are the pink circles. And by repeating those on the grass boulevard, we're going to create a kind of a nice alley of flowering vegetation as you walk down that street. And if we can move to the next picture. I attached some colored imagery to show you some of the images of the vegetation that I'm proposing to use for the larger trees: Pacific flowering dogwood and Crimson King maple. So the Crimson King maple, of course, will give that bright colored purple in the summer season, and then in the spring, of course, you'll have the white flowers of the dogwood. Smaller trees include Japanese snowbell and dappled willow and vine maple. Vine maple are little small native trees that would go in individual gardens. And the Japanese snowbell trees sometimes there's varieties that are a little narrower. That's what I'm proposing for down the center roads. Then these are the Serbian spruce trees that you would see between the large trees on the right-of-way line. Next one. Let's just give you a little bit of imagery. The play structure is a timber frame play structure that we're proposing, so it's kind of got a natural look to it. We have rain garden elements, we have special paving, and our amenities space, we have like some special paving next to the playground. And this is sort of indicative of the kind of furniture that we're thinking, sort of quite a contemporary but interesting looking furniture. And I think that's it for our presentation.
Okay, is that all, Matthew?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, before we get going, does any panel members have any questions of staff on this project? If you could stop sharing your screen, maybe I can see everybody's faces. Thanks. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, a couple questions for staff. Just to do with the garbage collection. So it's handled by the Strata. The city doesn't have pickup to these units. So that's the case.
That's correct. So anything over 4 units would require private on-site pickup.
Okay. And there's some overhead hydro lines along 2 of those streets, I think. Are those going to be put underground as part of this, or still overhead?
That would probably be determined at design stage acceptance, and usually in conjunction with the applicant.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, before we get going too, I'd like the applicant just to clarify a couple things. Where are we here? I don't know, maybe Brad would answer this. I was having trouble with the plans I was looking at to figure out how the outdoor spaces work for each unit, the ground floor spaces. Are there fences dividing that? And it seems to me many of them are actually facing the road, so they look more like a little front yard rather than a private space. They're very open to the street. What's sort of giving them privacy?
Well, yes, they're all fenced, so they all are completely fenced, right? The type of fencing are still considering, but on the ones facing the right of way on the top, of course, would be a standard subdivision fence on the in there, so they would have a full height fence. You're
Which
right.
means what's a full height? 6
Like
feet?
five, yeah, let's say
Yeah.
6 feet technically, yeah. But on the ones like the building E, F, and G buildings that face Labio Road, you're right to say that they're a little bit like a front garden. So it's kind of what I call a townhouse garden, where you can look out to the street, and so basically, yes, someone walking along can see you too, but the fences along there, I'm thinking, are going to be about 4 feet high, unless, of course, the municipality has a different idea that they want to be higher. But I think 4 feet high is okay. When you sit down, then you get privacy. When you stand up, you can see out, which is good for security and for the project and the street, really. And they are also buffered by the little individual trees. So every unit has a tree, which of course would be a multi-stem kind of flowering tree. So that would give you natural screening. And then every one of these has a little bit of a buffer strip between the fence and the patios. And so they essentially could have a hedge along there as well that I guess individuals could let grow a little bit taller if they didn't like the 4 foot visual.
So is there a fence between each unit?
Yeah, there's a fence between each unit.
That's
Yes.
5 feet high?
Yep, those are the screen fences, 5 feet high between, well, 6 feet, say 5 feet to 6 feet. That's so that the individual owners can sit down on their patio without having to talk to their neighbor.
Yes, and
No.
what kind of material are you proposing for that?
We're proposing wood fences for that cedar fences for all of the fences. Even the lower fences I'm proposing cedar fences for those.
Right. Okay, my other question is regarding the garages. I'm not very good with my measurements. I'm not an architect. So is there enough room for a car to be parked outside of each garage without being in the roadway?
Are you asking me? No, there's not.
You are the architect, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's not enough depth to park a car between the road and the driveway. Each little driveway is just an apron to signal that you're coming into the door of the driveway, and provides that room that you need to turn your wheels into there.
Right, so they would have to always park inside the garage.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In every instance, really. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Which
that
in a way, I guess you could say, oh, that's too bad they don't have a parking spot outside. But in a way, it's good, because then the internal streets aren't littered with vehicles, like of every different kind of description. So it's a nice clean look to the project.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that clarification. Now, normally on these panels, we, do a little round with each of the members here, and they get a chance to speak to the project and give their feedback. I don't usually start. I usually finish up, but I have a couple things with this project that I would really like to hear other panel members comment on. So I'm just going to bring them up right now. First of all, some of the units appear to share a front porch, so that there's two doors very close together side by side, and the owners would have to share the porch space. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. I'm also wondering what your thoughts are on what I feel is, in a lot of these units, not really a very private ground floor patio space, because the back sides actually are all the driveway and the garages. And the third item, what your thoughts are on things like the parking and particularly the tandem parking spots, because I really wonder if people have two cars, if they're actually going to shuttle them in there and where that second car is going to go. So those are sort of three concerns I have. I have other ones that I'll discuss later, and hopefully other people will bring them up. But I thought I'd bring them up now, and if panel members wouldn't mind giving your feedback on those comments as well, I'd really appreciate it. So anyway, we can get started, and perhaps we can start off with Hector. Would you like to start off there?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I mean, in general speaking, I hear your concerns. I think I go to Vancouver quite often, and this is the kind of townhomes that you see everywhere on the Lower Mainland. It's a nice density. I mean, compared to other projects that we have seen on the past in this panel, I think the density is not as bad. In general speaking, I mean, again, it's a simple design townhome, and funny enough, yeah, I think in many ways that works for Nanaimo. I guess there's maybe some comments that there's some units on the corner are kind of a blank face. Maybe that would be kind of in terms of design, maybe one of my concerns. Especially, I was looking at the northeast 3D view. I mean, there's like 1, 2, 3 different materials. I don't even know if that really works. Maybe it works more like the southeast, that is just like one single material. I don't think it's particularly offensive considering the scale of the buildings. I would say that in general speaking, I like it. I know it might look kind of tight for some of the developments that we see in Nanaimo, but that area is quite central to the city. It's close to Bevan Park, which has great amenities. About the comment on the porch, I have mixed feelings because usually I like it, but I live in a very similar townhome, and my neighbor smokes. I don't smoke, and all the smoke from my neighbors goes into my door. That's my comment. So I would say, as architects and designers, think about on those situations. Sometimes we forget about that. And my neighbor loves to smoke. He spends like 6 hours a day in his porch smoking. So maybe I know it's you're gonna say, well, you need to live with that, but you know what? Like, you can get cancer from secondary smoke. So maybe think about adding a good fence between those two doors, or some way to isolate the two doors that are too close together. But yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
So are there some recommendations you'd like to make there?
I will not like to give recommendations. Those are comments. I think the project as overall, it's okay. I will not oppose it. I don't have comments. I think I will leave it to the professional, like to the architect and to the owner of this property to decide based on my comments if they want to do something.
Okay. Thanks, Hector. Angie, would you like to go?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Okay. Yeah, I think overall, I think it's great to see. I think this area is, does have a lot of these townhome style developments popping up. So I think that it kind of fits within that fairly well. I just had a few comments here. Yeah, there was a comment from staff about creating a pedestrian network, especially for, I think, buildings B and C, I believe it is, and just how they don't have access to the road easily. I think that is that would be really valuable and important here is making sure that they do have a safe access to get to, the transit stops and the road to kind of access those things. So I do think that's important. I was surprised, just given how treed this lot currently is and how they're very mature trees that are there currently, and I was a little bit disappointed to see that only 3 were being retained. And so I think that if there's an opportunity, particularly along like Lavio Road, I see there's a bike trail going in there, and then some trees along the roadway. If there's an opportunity to retain any more trees, I know it's challenging with everything else that's going on in the site, but I do think that any of those trees that we can retain would be really valuable. and worth trying to do. In terms of the building itself, I think the garage doors do look a little bit awkward. I think just I'm not sure if there's if maybe adding like some detailing or some glazing or something on there would help with that, or maybe just using a different shade of the color palette there. They seem to really be a focal point, and I don't know that they necessarily should be. So that's one thought, I guess, just to maybe consider some different ways to maybe just make it a little bit of a gentler appearance, or break up that door a little bit with some detailing. In terms of the patio space, yeah, I think that's a tricky one. There are balconies which are a nice additional private space, especially if I think currently, yeah, they're shown as transparent. I don't know if maybe there would be some value, and there's some trade-offs, I guess, either way, but maybe in creating like a bit more of a private patio space through the balconies. Yeah, it is a tricky one. I understand that the site is sloped as well, which creates challenges for all of these different features. But I do think if there's an opportunity to make those patio spaces a bit more private, particularly along kind of the more the busier roads, Labio, and then I forget the name of the other one there, but along the main lane there, I think that would be valuable. So the patios, and then sorry, Marie, Madam Chair, can you remind me of the other item that you had flagged to consider?
Sure. That was the shared front porches, the patio space, and the tandem garages.
Yeah, right. The tandem garages, I do think will be an issue. I can't imagine how more than one car will fit in there. I think if anything, it'll just get used for storage or like parking or other things. That additional volume there. Just based on what I see around in the neighborhoods, it's very challenging to have tandem parking and make that work. I did go back and look at the street view of this lane already, and even without this development, there's already cars parking along the side of the road there as well. I think there was 4 on Google. So I can only imagine with this development that is going to become an issue, and so I would I think give some thought to adding more parking somehow, whether that means maybe taking out a unit or looking at different ways to lay it out. But I do think the tandem spots will be a challenge, and maybe those units only need to have one indoor spot and then can have an outdoor spot located somewhere else. But yeah, I do think there's value there. The shared porches, just in terms of like an entry to the house, I don't think I have any comments on that. I think that's it's maybe not ideal, but I think it looks like there's maybe a divider between the unit, like between the steps on either unit, and so there's a little bit of opportunity for personality or individual tastes there as well. So I think that's okay. Yes, that's all my comments. Thanks a lot for the presentation, and best of luck with the project.
Thanks, Angie. Marta, would you like to go ahead?
Sure, yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation. 30 units of housing in Nanaimo is very welcome here, especially family housing. Wanted to just echo the comments about integration of pedestrian paths, especially just wanted to I think building B and C, maybe the connection to the play structure would be nice, at least to achieve that. It's pretty important. An idea that I don't know if it's been looked into, maybe instead of two-way traffic, if it would be possible to do just a one-way road, which would allow a little bit of a pedestrian path down that entire street. I don't know if that's a possibility or not. And then I think that's pretty much my only comment in terms of site mobility. And then the other one, the city plan of Nanaimo talks about integration of different people of different ages. And so I'm just wondering how your site, how aging in place has been considered as well. Thank you.
The applicant want to respond to that question?
About aging?
Aging in place.
Yeah, I think we will follow the latest BC building code about the adaptable units, and we will provide the blocking for the future grab bar and everything, all the features in the units.
We can't hear you, Marta.
Sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Marta, we were.
Oh, no, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Did you have any more comments to make about the project?
No, thank you. But just one more thing about the play structure, which is lovely, by the way, the idea of using the natural materials. I didn't see a fence, maybe if there was a low fence around there. I know I always worry about my kids running out onto the street.
Okay. So you were suggesting perhaps a fence around the play area?
Yeah, maybe in the same style as the play structure, something playful and whimsical as Nanaimo tends to be.
Okay, good suggestion. Yeah. Okay. So that's okay. That's your. Where are we? Hillary, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you to the applicants for the presentation. And yes, this is good family-friendly density that we do need. And yeah, I really appreciate the panel's comments so far. I did note the shared entryways as well, but as Hector said, that is somewhat common when you are trying to densify in these areas. So I think it'll be okay because they're pretty small. So hopefully people aren't like storing things outside on their patio stoop. And I appreciated the clarity about the fencing between the units. To Angie's comment about the tree retention, I always also think of the trees, so I'm really glad that, you know, you've retained 3 of them, but yeah, there's staff comments about including more evergreen trees so that there's more screening year-round on the site, and I think that's a good comment, and thank you to staff for that. And I also had a note about some sort of fence around the play area just because it's so close to that driveway, just to keep excited kids from running onto that area. And yeah, there is a lot of blank wall space. I don't know if like those side units could get extra windows in their unit. That would be nice. A good way to break up those big blank walls. And yeah, the garages are prominent just because they're in that lighter color. So if maybe there's a way to blend them a bit more, but other than that, that's all my comments, and appreciate the panel's remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. And Harry?
Yeah, the building design fits in the neighborhood pretty well. There was a staff comment about the blank windows, which Hillary just mentioned, on the north and south walls. I think they could do with a window also, or something like that. And the garage doors, they do kind of stick out like a sore thumb along the bottom there. Brad did great with the landscaping. I think that's good. The color palettes of the different buildings are great. It blends in really good. The shared entry with that sort of density, like you can't really avoid that. So overall, I think it's a good project. And yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
And Jonathan?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I had one more staff question that I forgot to ask. Is it okay to ask that now?
You go right ahead.
So there was a staff comment on landscape design. It said consider incorporating sections of organic landscaping for visual interest and variability. I didn't quite understand what the meaning of that was, so I'm wondering if you could provide some clarity on that.
Yeah, it is sort of related to our part 17. We have some guidelines that are built into our zoning bylaw, and it just sort of specifies that for the North Nanaimo area, that an informal design layout is something that, you know, we've striven for in the past.
So I guess, what do you mean by informal? Like more natural looking, or
less structured? So in this case here, it's very you know, formal in its layout. So when I say more organic, sorry, I just meant more informal.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so for site design, I guess depending on whether or not the hydro lines stay overhead or go underground might impact some of the tree selection along the streetscape. So some of those larger shade trees might not work if there are overhead lines, and that could have a big impact on like the overall look of the development if those trees are shorter and smaller. But so I guess that's something that'll play out when that decision's made. But something to keep in mind. For visitor parking, I guess one thing that stood out to me is that there's the 3 visitor stalls on site, and 2 of them are accessible. So I guess as like a visitor who doesn't have like the accessible card, there's really only 1 spot on site that those visitors can use, which isn't much. But it does look like there's some street parking here. So I guess depending on how much of that gets used up by residents, it could be a challenge for visitors to get, I guess, the non-accessible visitors to find their spots. But not sure I have a recommendation about that, but that is one thing I've noticed, is that often with the on-site visitor parking, there's usually an adequate amount of accessible parking, but the normal stalls are often a bit short in supply. For the buildings, I liked how the color palette varied a bit from building to building rather than being the same. And there was some comments about the pedestrian network throughout the site. I'm not quite as concerned about that, just since the internal road is kind of functioning like a back alley, so it's not like it's a high traffic street, so almost like the whole road kind of is a pedestrian route. I mean, the car traffic's going to be slow, and infrequent, I think, on the internal road. So maybe, I mean, it might be nice to delineate a pedestrian route from the building C and B, but didn't quite get a sense of how narrow that road is. But if there isn't really room to add a sidewalk, maybe just a different paving style on one side of that driveway to sort of mark a pedestrian route, although if it's flush with the road, maybe cars would potentially drive on that pedestrian route too, but I just don't quite have a sense of how wide that road is, but could be worth just on that internal road having a different paving for a pedestrian route. So on the planting plan, there's some vine species, and there was mention of green screens, but I couldn't quite see in the plan or the renderings or the presentation anything about the green screen. So I'm wondering if the design team can provide us with a little more detail on what those are and what those look like.
Go ahead, Brad or Matthew.
I don't recall putting any green screen in. There are vines shown in the list because we always put vines on the fences between the units. Like we'll put a clematis on one and then a different kind of a vine on another, so that it adds another level of interest between the units. But I don't, unless Matthew has included a green screen.
I guess it was just in the climbing hydrangea. I had a note about green screens. Maybe that was just something from a different project that got copied and pasted in or something. But
I mean, a green screen might be a possible element, say at the end of Unit 30, where there's not much opportunity for landscaping there. So maybe some element like that could be useful, but I didn't include it yet.
Okay, yeah. So maybe that was put in the legend by mistake, but maybe it's something worth considering in some of those tighter areas, and maybe even the blank walls on the building, a green screen could help break that up too.
Mm-hmm.
In the amenity space, the covered bike parking, just based on the symbol, just that style of rack where it's like a kind of a big long rack with individual stalls. Those can sometimes be not really accommodate a wider range of bike styles. So I think it's better to go with a bike rack, like the individual bike racks, a row of those individual racks that a bike can kind of pull all the way through. Could be, yeah, more better for work better for a wider variety of bikes. You might lose a few spots in capacity, but I think it's probably don't need a ton of visitor bike parking in that spot, just because a lot of the residents might allow their guests to park in their garage or whatever. So I think losing a few stalls under there is fine if it results in bike racks that are a bit more adaptable. I have a question about, it looks like in the drawing that there's kind of a curb at the edge of the asphalt driveway. Is that like a concrete strip that's flush with the asphalt, or what is that?
So on the front, there's a grade shift that happens down the center. And so if you look at the architectural renderings, it shows little steps, and that will have to be concrete walls. And I showed them in the little exhibit sheet that we're going to be using, sort of, I call them planters, but walls, but they're little L's that'll come out and basically retain one level slightly different from the other, but they're very shallow. So they're not really a major design element, I don't think, in this, but they will be accommodated when we're doing those individual entrance locations for sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that wraps up my comments. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Okay, let's see what hasn't been covered here. Okay, well, first of all, it's good to see a project with, especially with all 3-bedroom units in it. That's something we don't often see. Usually they're pared down to little single small units and so on. So great to see a family, multifamily project, real family project come in with some space. And basically, I think overall the building character fits in well with the, you know, in terms of your color palette and the style that you've used with the pitched roofs and so on. Sort of fits that 70s bungalow style of the neighborhood. I think you've captured that quite well, and the color palette and so on. There's a couple aesthetic things though that I think might improve, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm just reading your plans wrong, but I really I look at the buildings and I see a real emphasis on the grid lines of the Hardie panel. I don't know if you're trying to emphasize them or if that's just coming out in the drawings, and that's not going to be the case. Maybe Matthew could comment on that.
Yeah, that will be further refined in the design development stage. Yeah.
Yeah, because if they're pronounced like that, it kind of gives the building a Tudor appearance, which I don't think is really what you're after. And also, I find when the grade changes and the buildings they change according to the grade, it really even looks more awkward. So I'm just wondering if you've considered perhaps using something with more just straight vertical lines or horizontal lines there instead of the grid shape.
And also the so-called grid line or the easy trim, you call it, right? But they are the same color as the Hardie board. So in reality, they are not that outstanding. But anyway, I will.
Yeah, just have a look at that. I just think, you know, I look at the building and that kind of takes away the aesthetic for me as soon as I see those grids. So, yeah, I don't think they work that well.
Thank you.
The balconies too, I have a little bit of concern with. They really appear kind of gratuitous. They're just sort of stuck on there. They have no weather protection. They don't seem to be, they're not built over a doorway, so they're not actually providing even weather protection over the entry into the units or anything like that. They're just kind of there. And I kind of wonder how useful they will be if they'll be used, but I guess it's kind of, I don't know. I just sort of feel like you almost put them there because maybe they don't have as much private space down on the ground. But I don't know that those balconies even give them much privacy either. And I think, as Angie suggested, something like if there was a way to make them more private, but I don't know how you do that. So that's just, you know, that's just kind of an aesthetic thing. I don't feel that they're sort of integrated very well into the building as a whole. Another sort of aesthetic feature that I see there is you have a very, you know, pronounced heavy window frames. You're going to line them with dark color. But you also seem to use, I don't know, I could count about 4 or 5 different window styles throughout the whole building. And I didn't quite understand why you're doing that. In some places you've got the little square windows, and then you've got bigger windows, and you've got split windows, and it's, yeah, anyway, you might want to look at simplifying that a little bit, and just, that won't stand out as much. And I guess the shared front porch is, I have a real problem with that. I certainly would live in a place would have, but I guess that's, you know, that's going to be up to the buyers. I think Hector's comments about, you know, you've got a smoker, somebody doesn't want to shovel their porch when it, you know, when it snows and so on. So if there was a way you could rearrange, I guess it means rearranging the floor plans, that's the problem. There was other ways that you could eliminate those that I think that would, you'd have a far better project if you could have separate entrances so they're not sharing a porch. But, you know, looking at your plans, I'm not sure how you do that. And again, I'm not an architect. So if there's a way of sort of switching your floor plans around somehow so that the doors aren't shared, that would be great. I agree with Angie on the garage doors as well. That side of the building tends to look a bit like a storage unit. I think if you add those garage doors, you know, with the lights along the top, that would just change it right there. It's a very simple change, or even color, you know, the color. But the solid door tends to make it look like a, you know, the back of a storage unit. So it would make it a little more attractive on that side. And the tandem garages, I still have an issue with them. And again, I don't know how you change that without changing your overall floor plans or eliminating a unit. I really don't think people are going to park 2 cars in there and shuttle them around when somebody gets home before the other person but needs to take their car out or whatever, you know. If they have 1 car, it's a 1-car family, it'll be fine probably, but if there's a second car, that second car is going to end up on the street. And so I think those tandem garages are a little bit of a problem, especially when they can't leave 1 car outside the building. And I would agree with the staff and a few of the panel members who commented on the ends of several of the buildings, there's no windows at all. So all I see is that grid. And again, aesthetically, it doesn't work. I think you need either, you know, different paneling for one. It's almost like you're allowing that grid to be the decorative feature. And I don't think that works at all. So adding some windows or some different variety of finishes on those end walls of each building that has no windows, that would be better. I don't know. I looked at the floor plans. I couldn't see why you couldn't add some windows in there. It looked like you could with the floor layout is. So that might be the solution. So if you can think of something to deal with those blank end walls, that would be great. Yeah, and I agree with the comments about the paths through the sites. I like Marta's idea of if you can make it a one-way through there, that might help and also make it a little less, you know, little issues with traffic, with people backing out of their garages and traveling along there. If everybody goes in the same direction, perhaps it'll make a better flow through the site with the vehicles. So we've had some good comments from them. The little fence around the playground, and that makes a lot of sense as well. Oh, the garbage enclosure too. I can't quite figure that out. I live in a condo project, and I know, you know, of course, when they hire different companies, and you have different requirements, but we have the 3-stream pickup now, and so if each of them have a bin in their unit, then you're probably not going to use that, and your visitor parking is okay there. But what's going to happen if they decide to hire a company that needs to use the garbage enclosure? Then where do the visitors go? And especially the handicap visitors are parked there, and you've got the garbage being picked up. What happens then? So there seems to be a bit of a conflict there that needs to be sorted out. I realize it's going to be the condo association that ends up, you know, making the decision, but if you leave them with that, then you're not going to have any visitor parking. So where's the visitor parking going to be? So I think that's a bit of a dilemma that needs to be sorted out prior to the building going to being regulated by the condo association. But otherwise, I think, yeah, it's great to have you know, some density in that area, and it's a good neighborhood for it, close to parks and so on. So good spot. So hopefully we've been able to contribute a few suggestions for you to improve that, and we'll see it go forward. Okay, so we have quite a few recommendations here, so I'm going to have to go through them slowly with everybody, and please feel free to correct me, panel members, if I'm wrong on any of these. So first of all, consider adding a pedestrian route from building B and C to the streets and possibly to the playground. Do I have that correct, Angie and Marta? You both commented on that, and I'm not sure if I got that correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Angie, great, okay. Consider a one-way traffic through the site to allow for pedestrian paths and or mark the pedestrian paths with different paving. So I've kind of combined Marta's comment with Jonathan's, okay, there. Consider retaining many of the trees as possible. Consider adding more evergreen trees for better screening. Consider adding a fence around the play area. Consider adding detail or glazing to the garage doors. Consider making the outdoor patio space more private. Consider replacing the pronounced grid feature on the facades with a different textured siding. Consider I think I already got windows, garage doors, we'll take that one out. Consider using fewer window styles. Consider adding windows or different textured finishes to the end walls of each building that doesn't, all the buildings. Consider ways to, okay, got that one too. Consider ways to add more parking and or eliminate the tandem parking. Consider adding more visitor parking or relocating it away from the garbage enclosure. Now, Jonathan, you said something about green screens, but I didn't quite get that. Did you want
Oh,
to?
I was just the planting legend talked about green screens, and I didn't see it on the plan, so I was just wondering what that was. But it sounds like that's not part of the project, so you don't
Take it
have
out?
to do a recommendation.
Okay. And consider a bike rack that can accommodate different styles of bikes. So I think that's, sorry, get everything. Yeah, anybody, did I miss anything? Folks, no? Okay. So that brings up to 13 recommendations, and there's no variance at this point. So if I could have a motion to accept the project as presented with those recommendations from somebody. Yes, Angie, seconder Harry, all in favor? Great, okay. It's a go. Good luck, and thanks very much for coming in and presenting this evening.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, we have a second presentation for this evening, and planner Peyton Carter will introduce it. Go ahead, Peyton.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody. Development permit application DP1370 is a development permit to construct a light industrial warehousing development comprising of a 2-story distribution warehouse with accessory office space and related site improvements. The subject property is a panhandle lot located in the Harewood neighborhood with frontage along 10th Street. It's currently zoned light industrial I2 and is designated as suburban neighborhood in city plan. The subject property falls within the development permit area 8 form and character. So the general development permit area design guidelines apply here. At this time, there's no variances proposed, but I'm happy to take any questions following the applicant's presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And who's presenting this evening?
Yes, hi, good evening. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll let our architect present the project. My name is Patrick Brandreth. I'm Vice President of Island West Coast Developments. We are the applicant in this case, and we also are the owners of the project. A little bit of history on the project. Our DP 1189 was originally approved June 3rd of 2024. Not too long after that, we ended up signing a lease with PepsiCo Bottling Corporation on this particular project. And we're now looking to amend the building form and character as required by their building requirements. For the most part, largely the landscape and the civil have remained relatively the same from our originally approved EP. In the case of landscape, we've actually improved some of the landscape along the western property line as well. So just introduce my team from Applin Martin on the architectural side, Humayun Rad, Anish Sharma. From Applin Martin on the civil side of things, Scott Lewis. And from Ladder Landscape Architects, Chris Winjack is here as well. So I'll pass the mic over to Humayun so he can run through and introduce the project. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Just share your screen whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, my name is Humayun Rad. I'm the architect for the project. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's not very big though.
Oh, it's not very big?
Full screen.
So everything is maximized on my side.
Oh.
You can see, or maybe I stop sharing.
Maybe you're not in a slideshow view or something.
Let me stop sharing and start again. Screen to share.
Still the same. We can see it.
Oh,
yeah.
Let's
It's my screen that's doing it. Apologies.
I can see it.
It's your screen.
I shrunk it before, I guess.
Oh, I see.
I just went and clicked it and it did it. Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to introduce you to this Pepsi warehouse facility that locates in 10th Street, 200 10th Street. So as you see, the site is located in an industrial zone, and most part of it all surrounded by industrial zone. On the west side, we see the Apple Green Park, and the north side, we have a residential zone. So the entrance to the site is through the panhandle that goes all the way to the back. So what we did here and how we programmed it was that the building is sitting well inside the site, and it's got buffers all around. So on the east side, you see that we are using it for the staff parking. On the west side, you see that we are using it for the trailer parking and the loading unloading area. And the building has got quite a buffer from each side. And the north side, again, we have a landscape buffer, and the same goes to the south side. So the building is a warehouse, but it's got an office portion to it. So if I want to talk about the form and character of the building and the design concept, we thought that instead of having a big box, first of all, we're going to break it into two boxes. So as you see, we have a bigger box over here, which contains the warehouse itself, and then we have a little bit of the lower box that has got this part of the office introduced to it. So the whole construction is a tilt construction, concrete, brutal, but we thought that how we can soften it. So by introducing some curtain wall or window wall, and introducing this interesting canopy all around it, we're trying to break this kind of the feeling from the concrete and bring it to the kind of a wood and warm kind of feeling. Again, we try to introduce some materials, different materials, like we have corrugated metal panel on both sides of this corner. And even though it comes to the concrete itself, it's just not a tilt panel. So we introduced some sort of randomly moving paintwork on the tilt panel, so which it goes all around the building. In terms of the materiality, I spoke a little bit, but the color palette and materiality, it goes together. So we have some sort of gray shades on this side. Again, we are introducing the corrugated metal panels when it comes to the corner, because corner is some sort of office space. Suddenly we have this white color concrete panel, and as I said, we have this area which is the glazed area for the office. So the height of the building, it varies. And what else I can talk about here? I think, to be honest, that's about it. It's a simple box, but we try to make it dynamic. So there are some landscape things, that landscape plan, that I'm going to pass it to Chris to talk about it.
Thanks, Homie. Yeah, so as Patrick had mentioned at the kind of the outset, the landscape design hasn't changed a whole lot from what originally was approved. The main areas of landscape design that were kind of key importance in the first sort of iteration of the site were the riparian area, next to Apple Green Park, because we have the creek running through there. All of that remains unchanged. We still are keeping all of the work that the biologists did. Everything there is the same. Where we have the main areas of change within the landscape are along the west side of the site, next to Apple Green Park. So the flat surface area has been expanded a little bit, and as a result, instead of the previous treatment that we had, which was hydroseeded area and trees just at the base next to the property line, we've adjusted that to account for more infiltration and to provide more pollinator and habitat support, and sort of serve more as an extension of the park into the site. So that whole western area adjacent to the parking surface now is a rain garden and swale. So it has a mix of native shrubs and ferns, and then trees running down it as well. And that does carry on to the south area of the site as well. Just north of Apple Green Park, so where it does that, where it turns around the area of parking. It's quite narrow in that space, but it's all planted out now instead of previously it was hydroseeded. And then the berm at the north end has been retained from the previous design, so that's the same. We're still augmenting the retained trees there with additional trees to create screening. That's all being kept. The other thing that you'll notice with the landscape plan that's a little bit different is that the caretaker's building, the secondary building on the site, no longer exists. So a little bit of planting that was previously there has now come out because that building is now just part of the drive aisle and parking. So that's basically it for the landscape. It's fairly minor in scope of revision, but just really kind of augmenting what we did have on the west side of the site there next to Apple Green Park.
I think that's about our presentation. If you have any questions, we are here to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so if you could stop sharing your screen then.
Okay.
Just wondering if any of the panel members have questions of staff on this project. Okay. Al Hector?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, is there a covenant or restriction on the panhandle access of the lot?
Sorry, Hector, are you asking if there's an alternative access available for this property?
No, like a covenant, or how's that working?
Oh, the Panhandle lot was created through a former subdivision process a number of years ago. We don't typically see as many Panhandle subdivisions currently, but this was long before me and long before the original development permit application came in.
So how it works, the access to the Apple Green Park, is that being, how are you gonna guarantee that it's always gonna be an access to the park through that panhandle?
Oh, for the trail specifically?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. The trail is covenanted, so
Okay.
the trail is a requirement, and then the Panhandle vehicle access is just as existing for the site.
And one more question: is there like a design standard for these sort of multi-use paths, or?
Yes, there is a design standard for the multi-use path. That's typically determined through our design stage acceptance, which happens after the development permit is approved, and through the building permit process.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, just I didn't have a chance to visit Apple Green Park. I saw there's a playground at the north end, but I guess I'm kind of assuming there's like a trail system through there that we're connecting to. Can you maybe provide a little more detail on what park amenities are in that park?
For you, Peyton.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself by accident. Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Right now, like you said, there is just the it's just a vacant land at this point. Eventually, the intention is to create a trail system that connects this community down to the neighborhood center, which is located to the southeast of the development. the entire community itself right now is fairly dead end, and there's minimal trails and pedestrian connectivity. So the intention is to connect the residential development to the north of the subject property, eventually down to 10th Street and across into the neighborhood center to the south.
Okay, so right now that new trail would kind of hit a dead end, and in the future the city would build a connector? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? No? Okay, do you want to go ahead, Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess maybe the bigger thing that stood out to me was just thinking about the urban heat island effect, and the site is mostly pavement and big building, and with the residential to the north and the wetland to the south, there could be some noticeable like temperature impacts for maybe the biology of the wetland and the people living on Applewood Crescent. So I'm wondering if there's things you can do to sort of reduce that thermal mass or that solar, like the radiation that's going to come off the pavement from the solar radiation. There was a staff comment, I think, about a green roof, which maybe was more for aesthetic reasons, but maybe if one way to reduce that thermal mass and that urban heat island effect would be a green roof. Maybe, yeah, normally I wouldn't recommend that if it's not really that visible, but considering urban heat island effect here, maybe, and the proximity to a residential area and a wetland, maybe it is more warranted to have a green roof or something like that, just to reduce that thermal mass on the site. And then there was a staff comment about maybe more planted islands in the parking. I imagine there's probably not much opportunity for that in the trailer area, just because it's such a utilitarian zone, but maybe in the staff parking, there's a way to add a bit more planting in that area. But yeah, maybe the designers can sort of consider urban heat island a bit more, and if there's ideas you have to help mitigate that a bit, in addition to anything I just suggested. There was a staff comment about an amenity area in the northeast corner of adding one. Yeah, I think just for the employees, maybe an outdoor lunch space. So maybe it doesn't have to be a complicated amenity area, but a table or something, so the employees can get out if they want to during their lunch break or whatever. But the park there is a nice amenity for people on like a break, but I guess until that pathway is built through there, it might not be that usable. And there probably aren't going to be like picnic tables in there for lunch breaks or whatever. So maybe an amenity area could help provide that function for employees. There's a question about the perimeter fencing. So it looks like the residents on Applewood to the north have like a wood fence. I'm wondering, is your chain link fence, the 1.8 meter height, kind of the same as that wood fence? Or I'm trying to sort of picture how those two fences look butting up. I guess there's kind of like two parallel fences right next to each other there. And if the chain link is higher than the wood, it might look a bit strange to the residents there. So I'm curious if it's a 6-foot wood fence that the residents have, and you're kind of just matching that, and your chain link won't really be that visible to them, or wondering. Yeah, I guess a question to the designer if you have any feedback on how that fence is going to look to the residents.
Patrick, do you know if the wood fence is the 6 foot? I know I can speak to the requirement for security for this site is to have the 6 foot chain link fence located inbound of the property line. So that's for site security. we couldn't use the wood fence on the adjacent property as part of that. But I can't speak to how high the adjacent wood fence is.
Yeah, so the it is something that I've thought about running by the tenant and whether they'd accept the existing wood fence as it sits right now. Right now, it is a requirement of their lease to have a chain link fence around the entire perimeter of the site, but that's, you know, doesn't really consider existing conditions. So it is a conversation that I was going to have with the tenant and see if they would be acceptable to having just keeping that wood fence there, and then we would be abutting the chain link up to it.
Okay. And the chain link, is it like a standard galvanized finish or a black finish, or what's?
Just at the moment, just standard galvanized.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's usually fine for an industrial area. But if it is more visible to the residents, then maybe the black would be better, at least on that one side, but something to think about. So the retaining wall on the west side, so does that mean I guess the paved parking area is a bit elevated above the park? So the park kind of drops down a bit?
That's correct. So the park just generally slopes towards the creek, sorry. And in order to have the parking surface be flat, it needs to extend out and be retained.
Okay. And yeah, so I'm thinking like how that'll look from the park. I don't quite have a sense of how tall the retaining wall is and how that compares to the height of the bioswale shrubs, but I'm sure that shrub selection could be a good opportunity to screen that wall a bit from the park, depending on what you're choosing there.
Yeah, so we've tried to get as much vertical screening in the planting as is feasible, using, you know, not because we want to stay with native species, so things like tall Oregon grape and stuff like that works well. It'll take a little bit to get to height, but it does have a good screening property to it. And then planting red alders because they work well in the rain garden for one thing. They work well or they tie into the adjacent Applegreen Park vegetation well as well, but they're also very fast growing, so they will provide quite a bit of vertical screening on the wall as well right away.
Okay, thanks. And then my last comment, just on the south edge, there's kind of that little planting strip between the fence and the paving. I'm just wondering, like, how wide is that, and like, are those plants going to be okay, sort of pinched between the fence and the curb there?
Yeah, so that's the edge of wall. As it ties back in towards the right-hand side of the sheet, the wall gets shorter, so the grade difference becomes less. And so it is a little bit of leftover space that we needed to set the wall, or the wall needed to be set back from the property line. So it's just mass planting in there. I think it's a mix of Mahonia and Salal. So it's just kind of looking to fill the space. We don't have enough room to get trees and that kind of thing in there, but it's pretty similar to what is going to be across the fence within Applegreen Park. So there's not a huge difference in the vegetation, you know, crossing that fence line. And the hope is that it just fills in.
Okay. Yeah, it would just be a shame if those died and then it's just kind of a muddy little strip or whatever. But yeah, you don't have a lot of options there with just the way the property line and fence is. So
yeah, it ranges from about 4 feet at the widest to like a 2-foot gap. So
well, I guess 2 feet.
It's pretty fine. Like it's wide enough to get shrubs in, but overall it's pretty narrow.
Okay, yeah. 2 feet should be okay. Yeah, thank you. That's all of my comments.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. Harry, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, it's a really nice looking building. My only comment would be in the warehouse area would be to maybe add some windows to let some natural light in there. But other than that, It looks great. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. Angie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think I really like the interest on the one corner there. I think that it really draws attention to that area well. The canopy and the using the kind of natural elements there, I think all really works well. I think it's great that the landscaping is really tied into what's happening at the park, and that native species are being used to kind of create a bit of a more cohesive collaboration between the two sites, I guess. I do think if there is an opportunity to use a wood fencing, I think at least on the side with the park, I think that would be valuable, just to have that kind of natural element to tie in to the park as well. If people are, if that park becomes a bit more programmed in the future and people are using it, I think it would add value to have more natural elements there. Using the vertical screening or vertical landscaping to kind of create that with the chain link, I think is an alternative if it's not possible. But yeah, I think that would add value there. I agree with the comments about the employee amenity corner. Tucking that in somewhere, I think that would be valuable. I did wonder about just the overall flow of the site. I guess, is the intention that the trucks will come in straight and kind of go to the back of the building, come around, and then come back out through kind of I guess it would be south. Yeah. Is it, I guess my thought there is, if the two, if the full loop, I think, is needed, then fair enough. That's, a functional element that needs to be there. But I guess if there's an opportunity to have, trucks coming in and out on the same strip, then that might be an opportunity to reduce some of the paving there. No,
You know what, Angie? We actually spent a lot of time on this. And
yeah.
It's funny that we ended up with a big loop around the building, and it seems easy, but at the end of the day, we had to balance the corporate protocol for Pepsi and what they require from their end, as well as all of the truck movements around the site, it was very difficult, and this was the best way that we could balance those two together, actually.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, it sounds like there's been a fair bit of thought into that, so fair enough. It's helpful to have the context there. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all my comments, actually. I think it's I think it's great. What's the overall look and feel, I think, is good for this area. And I guess maybe one final comment would just be to really just to pay close attention to that boundary between the residential area and the site as well. Just any kind of screening or separation that can be added there, I think will be really valuable. But thanks for the presentation, and best of luck.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angie. Marta, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed your project. Oh, sorry, my screen. Hi, there we go. Thank you very much. I really enjoy that it's very clear where the front doors are as you approach the building down the road. I appreciate I assume is the city's effort and your effort to connect the site to the park and make sure that stays intact. I'd like to echo Angie in saying that it would be lovely to have a little outdoor amenity space, even if it's for like a picnic table in the summer where people can sit and soak up a little bit of sun. That would be nice. While the park that's getting built up next door builds up its own amenities, at least for that time. Other than that, the wood, is it real wood? It's a wood look, I guess, in the soffit there.
It's a good look. Yes.
It's real wood.
It's
Yeah.
a composite panel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And the metal offsetting it to the side is also, I really appreciate the efforts put in to give it a little bit of play and not make it just a clear box. I do agree that we could use a little bit more clerestory maybe in the back of the warehouse, if possible, especially on the side that doesn't have any windows. Yeah, great job. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Is that it, Marta?
That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. And Hillary?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to the panel for the comments so far. I think there have been some really good comments made. Yeah, it's a lot of asphalt in one area. The idea of the green roof or using putting a solar array on the roof, at least to sort of take advantage of the amount of unobstructed sunlight you're going to get in that area might be cool. I wonder about runoff from the site. I might have just missed the comments if there's rain garden space around it to deal with the runoff from the site so that it doesn't go into the riparian areas without being filtered out a little bit. And then for the corner that has the visual interest with the big windows, just to make sure that there's bird-friendly glazing on those windows with pointillated screening or something like that, so you don't have birds flying into the windows. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Hillary. And last but not least, Hector.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I kind of agree with a few of the comments here. My recommendation will be to add some solar and green roof to the lower box of the two boxes of the warehouse. I think where is the office space? I think it will help. On the renders, we have all these electric trucks, and Pepsi apparently is very so with the idea of using electric trucks for their delivery. So I think it would be nice that the building reflects that push for electrification. Maybe even some EV chargers added into the parking spaces. Probably it's gonna show up once you guys start working on the construction documents. The other question that I have is about the panhandling. Why does the driveway has two different widths? It starts at 9. Well, from looking from the road, start 6 meters, then it gets wider at 9 meters. Why do you guys didn't keep a constant width on the driveway?
There was a requirement that we had to abide by through a riparian assessment, and so that was the max width we could get at the entrance of the drive aisle.
Oh, okay.
Setback from the creek.
Okay. And is there not a desire to keep it for longer, so at least there's more green space?
Well, we do need to utilize as much width as we can get as well for two large trucks passing each other. So.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand the logic because again, I see that at some point, I don't think two trucks are going to be able to drive on that driveway. So one of them is going to have to wait no matter what. That's my comment. I will just keep the whole driveway to 6 meters all the way long.
I think the preferred driveway width is about 9 meters. And we would have done that at the very beginning, but because we are kind of limited, we cannot do it. So that's why we're keeping only that portion that is limited for us to 6 meters. And after that, we are going back to what is preferred for the Pepsi. So we are talking about trucks.
No, I know.
Definitely,
I know.
more
I
area is
know.
required for maneuvering. So if one of the trucks just stays at the top of the panhandle until the other one passes, I think that's going to be a little bit of traffic issues over there.
Yeah, it's not such a big warehouse, right? And basically you have all the space around the warehouse to hold in position, right? So let's say if you're coming out of loading or unloading your truck, you will wait where is the building, right where you have the main access of the building. And if there's no trucks coming in, you just go out, right?
Yeah, I think it's not that small though. So if you look at our plan, you have 3, 13, the other, the trailer parking, and then the truck parking and all that. I think it's quite a noticeable kind of
I have worked 2 or 3 industrial projects. This is definitely in the smaller scale of warehousing. I would like to get more comments from the panel about it. I don't know if I'm overreacting about this. My recommendation as it stands right now would be to make the whole drive aisle 6 meter wide, the full length.
I might be able to jump in here and just share. I'm Scott Lewis, I'm the civil engineer for the project. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just share one of our access drawings and show you what we've done from how we're going to actually be physically building it. So that might help here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically our current state where drawings right now we're at. So what we've done is, this is where we have the retaining wall on here and then the access path. So you can see the width of when you look at this in the detail to the width, we've narrowed it up to here as best we can, but this is the actual width that they need to make the vehicles turn around, come around this corner, because the vehicles actually track out to here. And then what we've done is we've pushed it away, and this is actually the cut slope up against the property line here, and this is the fill slope trying to stay within it. So what we're tried to do is we went through this, and we actually spent a lot of time earlier on in this project to come up with making this fit through this access. And we also have all the services we have to do with, because we have to do with water, sanitary sewer, hydrotail cable. So there's a whole bunch more that's going on in the background that happens through the detailed design. So hope that might help explain sort of the constraints we've had as we move through this. So any more questions, just let me know. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps. I think it's just the turning radius. I guess that the site plan that we have access doesn't show the turning radius. So I guess that makes sense where you're coming out, that you need the extra width. Yeah.
Yeah, there is, like, as the vehicles come around that corner, and we did multiple vehicle turning templates as we went through this whole process, right, to come up with that. So I think that at the end of the day, we've probably tried to optimize this as best we can with all the constraints we have in front of us, from the grades, the servicing, the trying to meet the SPIA areas that are around us. Yeah.
Thanks for the explanation. And if no one else from the panel has any concerns, I will just drop my concern about it.
And does anybody else on the panel concerned about that roadway?
Madam Chair, I might just jump in if that's okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make the panel aware that the 6 meter width is the minimum requirement to obtain fire access to this site. So if that helps deal with any concerns, just so that you're aware.
Okay, I'm not hearing any other panel members concerned about it, so we'll leave it at that, Hector.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. First of all, great looking building. I think in terms of form and character, it's it suits its purpose. It's pretty basic, but I think you've done a lot to make it at least a more attractive building and a more livable building for the people who have to work there. Putting some glass in an enclosed box is always good. I agree with all the comments that have been made, such as adding a little bit of, clerestory light, green roof, all the things that everybody's brought up, I think are important. I just did have one question though. I remember this property before. I was on the panel when we were looking at it previously. And I'm just wondering, is it an all-night operation that Pepsi plans to be running there? Like, are there going to be trucks coming in and out 24 hours a day?
No, there's the trucks come in at night and then leave again early in the morning.
Okay, yeah, because that's a bit of a concern with the noise. I think it was a different business there before. We talked about the noise for the neighbors there. I'm also concerned about headlights once it's dark, which might still, if they come in at night and then they leave in the morning, headlights shining in those areas as they come in and out, and the noise of the trucks running and that kind of thing. So, so I think my only comment to add would be just making sure that the screening between the north side property, like the residence and the warehouse space, is really well thought out, so that there isn't a lot of light bleed, or it blocks the noise as best it can. So doesn't disturb the neighbors there. But I think, they own a property right next to an industrial property, so there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But if there's ways you can mitigate that, that would be really great. So other than that, I'd say it's with the recommendations here, I think it's a good project. Good to see more industry coming to Nanaimo. So excellent. Okay, panel, got a few recommendations here. I'll just go through them. So I'm just thinking, ensuring that the screening along the north side of the property blocks headlights and sound from the neighboring properties as much as possible. Consider adding a green roof to reduce the solar mass on the site or solar panels. Consider adding EV chargers. Consider some planted islands in the parking area. Consider adding an outdoor amenity space for the staff. Consider using a black chain link fence along the north side of the property. Consider adding clerestory windows on the warehouse portion of the building to add natural light. Consider adding wood fencing along the west side of the property next to the park, if possible. Consider, and then, I took that one out. That was the driveway. Okay, I started writing it and didn't complete. Okay, so that's 8 recommendations. Is there anything I missed that you? Okay.
I guess I'm just like, we have 2 different fencing recommendations, and they maybe kind of conflict with each other a bit, just with recommending wood on one side and chain link on the other. As far as security goes, it's probably better to keep the fencing the same type all the way around. So I'm wondering if maybe it's, having 2 recommendations that kind of aren't that compatible with each other might be a little awkward.
That's a good point. I'm wondering about what about a chain link fence along the north side and the west side of the property? A black chain link. The black would blend in more, not be.
Black would blend
industrial looking.
With the park more.
Yeah, would that be suitable, Angie? You were the one who suggested that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if there is like the vertical landscaping, that'll help. I'm just thinking in the future, being in the park and looking up and seeing this big industrial building, it's not really what you go out into nature to see. And so trying to think of ways to kind of screen that with a natural element. Do you think, Jonathan, like, is it, I think, like, is there an opportunity to maybe do like wood along the park at like I guess it would be the west and the north side there? I know there's other moving pieces that have to kind of go through approval. I think a black chain link could be kind of a backup option, but maybe doing an opportunity to have wood there for those 2 bases, and then just tying into the chain link where it joins with the other industrial properties. Or is there?
I mean, if as long as the planting along the bioswale is like tall enough and established enough, I think. I mean, it'll probably look nice through the black chain link. Whereas if it was a wood fence, you wouldn't even see that planting, which I know it's probably better for the plants if it was black chain link than like wood screen, which could block more sunlight and stuff. So my hunch would be to just go for the black chain link.
If I could just make a comment. I've walked that park many times, and I think everyone should consider, like, it's a very large park. It's a very large area. So I think in the future, if there was a trail network that was to be built through the park, I wouldn't envision it being built right next to the chain link fence anyways. There's quite a bit of wooded buffer, tree buffer between, that property line inwards. So there's lots of opportunity to work a trail network through there that you wouldn't even be able to see through to a building there, let alone a chain link fence.
Yeah, I think all of that makes sense. So yeah, if we want to just simplify it to the black chain link, I think that's fine.
Okay. We'll do that. We take out one, and I'll just make that a single recommendation of consider using a black chain link fence along the north and west sides of the property. Okay. So that's 7 recommendations. Okay. We haven't missed anything else. Somebody want to make a motion to accept the proposal as presented with those recommendations? Yeah, Hector, are you making the motion? Yes, okay. Seconder? Harry, and all in favor? Great, thanks. Yeah, you're waving there, Hector. I thought, well, he wants to say something. Okay, good.
I was going too fast with that, with my hands. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we did all in favor, right? I think so. Okay.
Yeah, all in favor. Yeah.
We did. Okay, passed. All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody, the team, for coming in and showing us your presentation this evening, and good luck with the project. Look forward to having
Thank you very much.
come to Nanaimo.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much. Have a good evening.
Great. And panel members, I think we're done for the evening. We don't have any other business, so if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Don't all rush in there, Jonathan. And seconder. Harry, and all in favor? Yes, we'll all agree on that. Okay, good. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.